The world's most vital energy artery is being physically wired for destruction. Intelligence reports from CNN and CBS confirm that the Revolutionary Guard has officially begun laying explosive mines in the Strait of Hormuz. This is the world's most important energy choke point, carrying 1/5 of all global crude oil. While the current mining is described as not extensive, the strategic threat is total. Iran retains 80 to 90% of its small boats and mine layers, giving them the capability to deploy a gauntlet of hundreds of naval mines across shipping lanes. President Trump has responded with a warning of military consequences at a level never seen before, vowing to use missile technology originally deployed against drug traffickers to violently eliminate any ship attempting to mine the strait. We are looking at a de facto closure of global energy transit, and as an auditor, I can tell you, the risk-free rate of global trade has just hit zero. Despite these reports of a mine-laden strait, the Pentagon is maintaining a narrative of total dominance. War Secretary Pete Hegseth asserted this morning that the United States is winning and that the Revolutionary Guard's navy is effectively destroyed. Trump himself told CBS News that the war is very complete because Iran has no navy, no communications, and no air force. However, if the enemy is defeated, why is the Revolutionary Guard successfully deploying a minefield using small crafts that carry 2 to 3 mines each? There is a massive accounting discrepancy between the White House claims of victory and the tactical reality of a long war that Iran is now signaling. I'm Camilo Motato, reporting for Thu News. As a certified public accountant, I deal with material misstatements and asset impairment. In any professional audit, if the management claims 100% success while the core infrastructure is being sabotaged, you are looking at operational fraud. Today, we are auditing Operation Epic Fury 10 days in. We are looking at a conflict where the Pentagon's public figures don't match the leaked intelligence. When you have 150 U.S. troops wounded, a figure nearly 20 times higher than the official report, the cost of operations is being hidden from the shareholders, which in this case is the American public. Let's examine the inventory of deterrence. Iran's naval mine stock is estimated to be between 2,000 and 6,000 units, consisting of Iranian, Chinese, and Russian variants. As a CPA, I track supply chain disruptions. The Revolutionary Guard doesn't need a conventional navy to win. They only need to make the strait uninsurable. By deploying mines from small, dispersed boats, they create a high-risk environment where commercial traffic stops. Trump claims the U.S. has already destroyed 10 inactive mine-laying boats, but the Revolutionary Guard still holds the majority of its fleet. This is a contingent liability for the global economy. If even a few dozen mines are active, the safe passage agreement that underpins global oil prices is effectively liquidated. The most alarming audit failure today comes from a fresh Reuters report. While the Pentagon has publicly disclosed only 8 seriously wounded U.S. forces, sources familiar with the matter state that as many as 150 U.S. troops have been wounded so far in the war. In accounting terms, this is an off-balance sheet liability. If the casualty rate is 1,800% higher than reported, the sustainability of the mission is in question. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt struggled to address these figures during her briefing, offering little new or substantive. When you combine these casualties with the 8 confirmed deaths we've tracked previously, the short-term excursion is beginning to look like a permanent, high-cost engagement that the administration is desperate to downplay as they seek an off-ramp. The supply side of the global energy ledger just suffered a catastrophic hit. While the world was focused on the bombs over Tehran, a massive operational shutdown has swept through the Gulf. Iraq has officially shut down several of its oil wells, and they aren't alone. Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia are all taking unprecedented steps to curtail production. Most alarming is Qatar, which has halted operations at several gas wells and shut down its liquefaction trains, the critical infrastructure used to process natural gas for export. As a CPA, I track business interruption. This isn't just a tactical pause, it's a systemic insolvency of the energy market. When the world's most reliable producers stop manufacturing their primary product due to insecurity, the going concern status of the global economy is in doubt. Qatar is now pleading for a quick return to diplomacy, stating that halting attacks is the only way to strengthen global economic stability. From a forensic perspective, the security premium on every barrel of oil has just become a survival tax. President Trump's response to this energy paralysis has been a massive escalation of commitment. While he maintains that the war is pretty much complete, he simultaneously warned that if Iran attempts to block tankers in the Strait of Hormuz, the United States will strike back 20 times harder. In accounting, we call this hyperinflationary deterrence. If you are already conducting the biggest airstrikes of the war, promising a 20-fold increase is a claim of near total annihilation. However, there is a credibility gap. If the US goals are mostly achieved, why is such a massive threat necessary? Trump's mixed messaging, saying the war could end soon while threatening unprecedented military consequences, reveals an administration that is desperately looking for an off-ramp but finding only more contingent liabilities on the horizon. While Washington signals a potential drawdown, the junior partner in this audit, Israel, is doubling down. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, during a visit to troops, stated bluntly, "We are breaking their bones, and we are not done yet." He described the ultimate goal as bringing the Iranian people to cast off the yoke of tyranny, placing the succession cost directly on the Iranian population. As a professional auditor, I see a strategic divergence. Trump wants a short-term excursion to protect oil prices. Netanyahu wants a fundamental restructuring of the regional map. These two goals are mathematically incompatible. You cannot have a quick, clean victory if your partner's objective is a prolonged campaign of breaking bones. This is a contractual misalignment that ensures the war will be far more protracted and costly than the White House is willing to admit to the American public. Finally, we must audit the technical attrition of the Iranian defense industry. The Pentagon has emphasized the steady destruction of Iranian missile sites, including underground ballistic launch bunkers, using heavy bunker busters. However, the Revolutionary Guard has rejected these claims, asserting that their missile program remains intact and that they are now firing larger salvos with warheads weighing more than 1 ton. In an audit of physical inventory, who is telling the truth? If the US has destroyed the infrastructure, why are 105 missiles and 176 drones being intercepted over Bahrain alone? The operational reality is that Iran has invested decades in asset protection through deep earth engineering, making a 10-day victory a statistical impossibility. 10 days into Operation Epic Fury, the human ledger of this conflict has reached a point of systemic loss. Across Iran, more than 1,200 people have been killed and over 10,000 have been injured. In Tehran alone, a city with a density and population comparable to New York City, at least 460 people have died and over 4,300 are wounded. As a CPA, I view these figures as a total impairment of social capital. When a nation loses over 1,000 citizens in 10 days, the operational stability of the state is compromised. Most striking is the report that the newly named Supreme Leader, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei, may have been injured even before he was declared head of the country. If the top authority of the entity is physically impaired, the command and control functions are operating in a state of high-risk volatility. The most critical infrastructure audit today comes from Iran's Parliamentary Health Committee. According to official reports, 9 hospitals are no longer operational due to the ongoing bombardment. Non-elective surgeries have been suspended to free up capacity for emergency cases. In accounting terms, this is a liquidation of essential services. While pharmaceutical stockpiles are estimated to last for 6 months, the physical plant and equipment, the hospitals themselves, are being systematically destroyed. You cannot maintain a going concern for a population of 90 million people when your fixed assets for health are being taken offline by bunker buster strikes. This is a humanitarian default that will create a long-term liability for whoever ends up managing Iran after the war. Despite the shock and awe campaign, we are seeing an interesting, intangible asset emerging, a rally round the flag effect. Iranians have been filmed in the streets pledging allegiance to the new supreme leader. Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has used this to claim that Washington's regime change efforts have already failed. From a professional auditor's perspective, this is a resilience audit. The US and Israel expected a rapid, clean victory in 2 or 3 days. Instead, 10 days later, the Revolutionary Guard claims they are aimless, and that the appointment of Mojtaba Khamenei proves the regime's core structure is intact. If the goal was to break the bones of the regime, as Netanyahu claimed, the marrow, the ideological support, appears to be hardening rather than shattering. Finally, we must audit the management control of the war's end. While Trump says the war could end soon, the Revolutionary Guard insists that Iran, not Washington, will determine when the conflict concludes. They have rejected claims that their missile program is destroyed, asserting that they are launching larger volleys with warheads weighing more than 1 ton. As a CPA, I track finality and settlement. If your counterparty refuses to settle the account and insists they are prepared for a long war, your short-term excursion has officially become a protracted liability. Araghchi has warned that since they cannot reach American soil, they will continue attacking US bases, installations, and assets in the region. This is an active debt of violence that the US will continue to pay in the form of wounded troops and degraded radar systems as long as the bombardment continues. The security balance sheet of the Persian Gulf is under extreme pressure. The Bahraini military has reported intercepting and destroying 105 missiles and 176 drones since Iran began its retaliatory strikes. This is a massive consumption of defensive capital. Each interceptor fired represents a multi-million-dollar expenditure to stop a relatively low-cost Iranian asset. As a CPA, I track resource depletion. While the Pentagon claims to be winning, the sheer volume of incoming fire is creating a defensive deficit for the Gulf Cooperation Council countries. Senator Lindsey Graham is already calling for these nations to do much more in their own defense, signaling that the U.S. umbrella is reaching its maximum operational load. The open question for our audit is whether the GCC militaries will formally enter Operation Epic Fury, moving from passive defense to active combatants. Iran's foreign ministry has issued a sharp audit of hypocrisy against the European Commission. After Ursula von der Leyen stated that the Iranian people deserve freedom, spokesman Esmail Bakai fired back, accusing Europe of laundering U.S. and Israeli crimes of aggression. From a professional auditor's perspective, this is a credibility impairment. Bakai specifically questioned where Europe's voice was when innocent Iranian little angels were killed in Minab, or when hospitals and firefighting stations were wickedly targeted. In the world of international law, silence in the face of lawlessness is categorized by Tehran as complicity. This rhetorical counteroffensive is designed to delegitimize the moral authority of the Western coalition, framing the war not as a liberation, but as a series of documented war crimes. The second front in Lebanon is now an integrated part of the global conflict's operating loss. Israeli strikes have pushed the death toll in Lebanon to 486 people. Hezbollah remains defiant, exchanging heavy fire with the IDF and effectively taxing the Israeli military's attention and resources. As a CPA, I view the Lebanese front as a subsidiary conflict that is draining the primary project, the war in Iran. You cannot achieve a rapid, clean victory in Tehran when you are simultaneously bogged down in heavy fighting in the suburbs of Beirut. This expansion of the scope of work ensures that the completion date of this war remains an unknown variable, despite Trump's claims that it is pretty much complete. Finally, we must audit the management's discussion and analysis from Tehran. Foreign Minister Araghchi has flatly rejected the U.S. narrative of a crippled military. He insists that the oil production and transportation have slowed not because of Iranian sabotage, but as a direct result of U.S. and Israeli aggression. Tehran is prepared for a long war, and asserts that they, not Washington, will determine the closing date of the conflict. In accounting, this is a contested settlement. If the counterparty refuses to accept your unconditional surrender terms and continues to fire one-ton warheads at your allies, your audit of victory is premature. They are making it clear that the cost of aggression will be a permanent state of regional instability. As we conclude our forensic look at Day 10 of Operation Epic Fury, we must address the most significant audit discrepancy of the entire war: the human cost to the United States. While the Pentagon's official ledger only lists 8 seriously wounded service members, the report of 150 wounded U.S. troops represents a 1,775% variance in reported data. In accounting, such a massive discrepancy between public disclosure and internal reality is a red flag for systemic risk. If the administration is hiding the true rate of attrition to maintain the victory is near narrative, they are setting up the American public for a political default. The inability to deny these figures suggests that the short-term excursion is in fact a high-intensity conflict with a casualty rate that the current messaging cannot sustain. The technical reality of the Strait of Hormuz remains the ultimate choke point for global solvency. Iran has begun laying mines, a few dozen so far, but they retain the capability to deploy hundreds more using small, agile craft. Trump's threat to hit Tehran 20 times harder if oil traffic is disrupted is a move of strategic desperation. As a CPA, I audit operational control. You don't threaten to hit someone 20 times harder if you already have the situation under control. The minefield, combined with the closure of oil and gas wells in Qatar and Iraq, has created a global energy deficit that no amount of bunker buster bombs can fix. Iran's strategy is simple. If they cannot export their oil, they will ensure the risk premium makes it impossible for anyone else to do so profitably. Finally, we must audit the goal of unconditional surrender. A few days ago, Trump stressed that the U.S. would stop at nothing short of total Iranian capitulation. But 10 days in, the Revolutionary Guard is firing heavier warheads, the new supreme leader is installed, and the rally-round-the-flag effect is strengthening the regime's domestic position. In professional auditing, If a recovery plan requires the total liquidation of a competitor who refuses to close their doors, the plan is insolvent. The Pentagon chief lists the permanent denial of nuclear weapons as a goal, but you cannot permanently deny a technology to a nation of 90 million people through airstrikes alone. This is a strategic mirage, a goal that is mathematically and operationally impossible to achieve within the short-term window Trump has promised. The final audit of March 10, 2026, shows a world in operational chaos. We have a Pentagon claiming victory while 150 of its soldiers are wounded. We have a president threatening unprecedented consequences while the most vital energy artery in the world is being mined. And we have a junior partner in Israel that is prepared to break bones long after Washington wants to go home. As a CPA, my verdict is that Operation Epic Fury has reached a maturity crisis. The easy targets are gone, the shock and awe has worn off, and we are now entering the long war that Tehran predicted. The excursion is over, the war of attrition has begun. But the final question is for you. Do you believe the Pentagon's winning narrative? Or do the 150 wounded soldiers tell the real story? Can Trump really permanently stop a nuclear program with bombs? Or are we watching a default of diplomacy that will haunt the global ledger for decades? Let me know in the comments. Your perspective is the only audit that matters when the official figures don't add up. I'm Camilo Motato, certified public accountant for Thu News. Thank you for staying for this strategic deep dive. Subscribe to stay ahead of the numbers and stay safe.